Hello, welcome to practice one. There's 58 minutes and 38 seconds left. Oh, Verstappen is just coming past the Dutch crowd with what do you call it? The smoke. But I saw this Instagram picture, and it was a sign saying please do not bring these like gas things into it, like put them in the bin. But obviously they're not going to really answer that because why would they? So, there's already a yellow flag. Oh. That was such a cool video message. Horn, Hornet just radioed in saying, should I call you Super Max, Lord Max or Sir Max? Because obviously he won the order of orange. The lifetimes you see is actually in front of the lifetimes I see, because I'm obviously watching it. There's so many yellow flags and people going off all the time. Yeah. But the yellow flag that you've seen was way more up to date than mine. Verstappen's got a purple sector 2, however, Lance Stroll or Sebastian Vettel is holding it up. We have an onboard, and it's Kevin Magnussen who caused that yellow flag by going wide. No, Schumacher going wide at turn 12. Obviously, there's fake gravel in turn 12, so that is not the best. I don't really know why they got fake gravel there, because obviously on normal gravel, the gravel just goes along with the driver. When the driver goes off the track, the gravel will follow them. However, on fake gravel, obviously the gravel is like stuck to the ground, so that won't happen. Ricardo, fastest middle sector 2. You can see Alonso. No, Norris just got the fastest sector 1 as well. Alonso's lap time is on the medium tyres. Ricardo's lap time, which is putting in P3 right now, is on the hard tyres. Verstappen is on the hard tyres, and Norris is on the hard tyres. So everybody on the live times you can see right now is on the hard tyres except Alonso. So yeah. Verstappen has now got the fastest lap time with a 15.2. 0.38 faster than anyone else. Obviously, it's only early days, it's only 5 minutes-ish in, but it's good sign so far. However, obviously, you don't really know. It's way too early to judge. I feel like in practice 1, you always can't really make like a fair, accurate judgment. You can get a rough indication, but obviously, lots of factors change within practices, and obviously the cars develop. They're probably just all the drivers, well, most of the drivers, 18 out of the 20 drivers are out, and that's probably because they want to get used to the tyres, see the tyre wear. Obviously, it's a new track, relatively. Obviously, we raced here once before, last year, but it's not much considering some races like Spa. It's been raced multiple years, decades, and the Dutch Grand Prix has only been raced recently, last year and this year. Daniel Ricciardo has just got the fastest lap, just pipped off Verstappen by 0.3 thousandths of a second, which is obviously not a lot with 3 green sectors. Norris has got a good lap there, to be fair. 2 faster sectors and 1 green sector, so that's pretty good from Norris. Obviously, the McLaren struggled last race, considering they wanted points against the Alpines. Obviously, Alonso managed to get P5 due to the fact, well, he was P6, but obviously Leclerc sped in the pit lane, which made him inherit position 5. We now have it on board of Perez, trying to do a fast lap. Now, Perez, I think it's been like good this season. Obviously, it's hard to judge because his teammates Verstappen, and although the team probably don't admit it, they probably have developed the team. The car towards Verstappen's style of driving, which is obviously a front end, is mainly what Verstappen wants the car. It doesn't really care about the back end. But obviously that's why many drivers have struggled in the past against him. But yeah, Perez has been good, I think, this season. He's been solid. Obviously, during the start of the season, there's all those things like, oh, is he going to challenge Verstappen for the title? I think many people, like me, didn't believe that would have happened, because you can tell the quality of drivers. Obviously, Perez is a fantastic driver. He's been fantastic for Red Bull. But whether or not he's on Verstappen's level, I think we all know he's not. Verstappen has now got fastest lap time, 0.5 clear of anyone else, which is obviously very impressive. Hard tyres for Verstappen, hard tyres for Ricciardo, hard tyres for Norris, and Alonso is on medium tyres. We have a card development thing, I don't know, table on this, and it shows that Red Bull have gained 0.09 seconds, so they've gone that much faster. Ferrari have lost 0.04 seconds, which isn't significant, but it isn't necessarily obviously a good thing, gaining lap time. Obviously, the full point of a lap time is making it as fast, as short as possible. Magnussen now has run right, turn 12, just like Schumacher did. I don't know if the fake gravel will do much for the tyres, obviously. But yeah, we'll have to. Oh, Verstappen. Verstappen stopped. Oh god, Verstappen's engine has just stopped. That's not very good. Home Grand Prix, and his gearbox has just gone. Turn 4. Verstappen's gearbox is broken. A virtual safety car is deployed, and that is because Verstappen has stopped up to turn 5 due to a gearbox problem. It's a good opportunity for a photo. Obviously not very good for Verstappen. But all the photographers have just got the cameras out already and running to get photos. A red flag has just been deployed. Let's see what's happening at Verstappen's. We've gotten on board with them. What I don't get though is Red Bull literally took a engine penalty last race. So fair though, at least with the red flag, it means Verstappen isn't losing out. He's just not gaining anything, because obviously all drivers are red flagged. They can't come out, including Verstappen. So, yeah. Verstappen's wondering if he can come out the car yet, because the drivers are still going around. Hopefully Verstappen can at least come out for practice 2. Verstappen's out the car, walking back to the pits. Now the pressure is all on Checo to get the lap times, get the tyre analysis that Red Bull needs, so that it's not going to massively affect them. Hopefully it's time to practice 2. But we'll have to see if the car can be ready for practice 2. Because obviously it starts at 2, I think, 3, possibly. So it doesn't have ages. If you were wondering what caused the red flag, Verstappen stopped after turn 4 due to his gearbox. Well, it was just broken, which is obviously not the best. Not many laps. He's obviously got the fastest lap, but he's only been out for 7 laps, and in the rest of this practice session, he probably won't be out. Practice 2, potentially might be out. However, they'll probably try and fix the gearbox, fix the issue before practice 2. But that'll take quite a lot of work. So hopefully they can do, because obviously it's not good for Verstappen losing out on so much running time. But I suppose if there's one driver that would probably not heavily miss out on the running time, it probably is Verstappen so far. So Red Bull will now just be heavily relying upon Perez to deliver in practice sessions to get the lap analysis, the lap data that Red Bull need for both drivers. Because obviously they can't split the strategies. They just have to find the right setup now. So one thing I'm assuming is that now in practice 2, Verstappen's going to be out for quite a hefty chunk of the session, rather than maybe waiting 10-15 minutes. I think he'll be one of the first ones out of the pit lane in practice 2, because he needs a running time that isn't obviously possible now due to his gearbox for practice 1. The session is resuming in 2 minutes, so yep, Nelly Driver's back on track. Right, the drivers are starting to come back onto the grid. So the drivers will be out delivering fast laps, and we'll see what they roughly are now. Verstappen has got a gap of 0.5. However, I'm assuming that's going to be quite easily beat when the drivers come out on the mediums and soft tyres, especially the Ferrari, Mercedes, and obviously the Red Bull of Perez. The only thing I would say, at least he's getting the problem now in practice 1 rather than in practice 3, which is quite important in terms of fast lap times and getting the setup finalised. Whereas in practice 1, it's just mainly about long time running. At least usually that's the case. Hamilton is now on track. He's got the hard tyres on, so we can compare lap time to Verstappen's fastest lap so far. We've also got Fernando Alonso setting at the fastest sector 1. I think he's still on medium tyres, Alonso, so that makes up for some of it. But obviously, it's still a very good sector. Fernando Alonso has a good lap time. Can't compare it to most, because Lando Norris had just stole the fastest sector of him by 0.5 seconds nearly. But he's got the fastest sector 2 and sector 3. However, that probably is going to be beat by Norris, as he had a flying first sector. I'm assuming Alonso's on the soft tyres, by the way. So I'm assuming Norris is either on the softs or medium. It's probably the softs, because I don't think it'd be that fast unless he was on the softs or he was a Red Bull or Ferrari. I was talking for ages, and I just realised that my microphone is turned off. So what I'm going to say, I might have already said it and just accidentally turned it off midway through, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's very important for Norris to be 0.7 seconds in front of Alonso, because obviously in the constructors, Alpine and McLaren are fighting for P4. Now, obviously, only the top 10 drivers score points on the race day. The 6 of them should already be occupied by the Red Bull, the Ferrari, and the Mercedes. That leaves 4 positions, and in them 4 positions, it really should be both Alpine drivers and both McLaren drivers. However, that obviously it's F1, that doesn't happen. Normally, you get 1 or 2 other drivers that get points that potentially shouldn't have had points, so it's not the obvious point scoring driver. I've actually forgot to make my race predictions, which I will have to make after this. It's going to be hard because the track is not really like Belgium in terms of it's not very long. You go for Belgium, the longest track, to Dutch Grand Prix, one of the shortest tracks. So yeah, but it obviously still suit the Red Bull. I think all tracks suit the Red Bull. Sainz has now got the fastest lap time for 12.8, which is not that far off Norris, considering it's a Ferrari and considering it's a McLaren. They both are on soft tyres. Sainz got the fastest sector 2, but yeah. All the top 5 drivers are on softs, and then you've got Verstappen, who was on hard tyres. He's not obviously on the track anymore, and I doubt he'll be on the track for very much longer. So all the drivers in front of Verstappen are all on soft tyres. So even though it's just the start of practice, it's looking quite good for McLaren in terms of they've got the fastest sector 1 so far, fastest sector 3, fastest sector 1 by Norris, fastest sector 3 by Ricciardo, and Sainz fastest sector 2. Yeah, that's one thing to say. Even though, it's a transmission error from the Red Bull car of Max Verstappen. However, the gearboxes on the Friday are old gearboxes that are not actually are the new ones that will be used. Obviously, Verstappen took an engine penalty last race. He's got a new, fresh engine, so it won't be using now today. Alonso's on a relatively solid lap. He's got his personal best time in sector 1. Sector 2, there's no personal best. And we are waiting on sector 3. This is the time though. Obviously, we can see Sergio Perez is currently in position 5. This is the time that Perez needs to prove himself to the team, prove himself that he's a good driver. He needs to be up there with Sainz. Obviously, he's 0.8 seconds off, which is a pretty big gap. However, it might have just not been a very good lap from Perez, but he needs to be up there, at least close to Sainz, because obviously right at the minute he's being outpaced by an Alpine and by McLaren. But as long as he's relatively up there with Sainz and Leclerc, that's all that's necessary. But he needs to just do some long running to get tyre data for both drivers, because obviously Verstappen's in the pits due to the fact that his transmission cable failed. Perez is now the important driver that Red Bull solely need to focus on for this practice to get all the data possible in the 30 minutes left. Talking about Perez is now on outlap as well as Sainz and Ocon. Like many drivers, Ricciardo has just missed the apex coming into turn 12. We've already seen it on board with the two Haas drivers, Schumacher and Kevin Magnussen, when they run wide, and Ricciardo's just doing the exact same thing onto the fake gravel. The Ferrari is porpoising quite heavily. Oh god, that was a big voice crack. Anyway, the Ferrari's porpoising quite heavily. I think it stopped its fast lap now. It's just gone slow. Maybe due to the porpoising, maybe down to another reason. But that's one thing the Ferrari suffers a lot compared to the Red Bull. If we saw in Spa, the straight, we saw the Ferrari porpoising a lot. However, the Red Bull was significantly less. Obviously, it bounced, but it didn't porpoise to the extreme amount that the Ferrari did and the Mercedes did. And considering Mercedes are the ones who pushed for the protest change, for the rule change, and obviously Spa was the first Grand Prix that rule change was brought in. It just made the Red Bull even further away from the other teams in terms of how fast they were. Obviously, the racetrack was quite well designed in terms of it was well for them. It showed the strength of that car. possibly not to the amount that the Dutch Grand Prix will, because it's a bit of a different track. As we see it on board with Perez, who just heavily locked up, probably just damaged tyres. And we see it on board with Kevin Magnussen gaining a massive slipstream off the back of the Mercedes. We just seen on board with Leclerc and on board with Magnussen, where Hamilton was literally on the racing line, coming up to the main straight. Magnussen went around him to turn one, whereas Leclerc just witnessed Magnussen overtaking Hamilton. Guan Yu Zhou is the only driver to have no time. He must have just done an outlap and then came in the pits, obviously 3 times. But I wonder if there's a further problem with Guan Yu Zhou. Obviously, the Alfa Romeo has been really unreliable so far this season. At the start of the season, they were doing alright. They scored a couple of points, point finishes. However, recently they've retired quite a few times. They're not being at the pace that they usually were, and as a result, they are dropping down in the constructors. Paris to turn 8, who just went a bit wide, nearly crashing in the barriers. He went on the grass. He was trying to control the car. He managed to, but he must have been like an inch or 2 away from that tyre wall right there. Talking about Guan Yu Zhou not having lap time, he's now on his outlap. Whether or not he comes in the pit is another question. However, he's now on the track at least, so that's a good sign. And by the looks of it, he is going to do a fast lap. Even though he's literally directly behind the AlphaTauri of, I think, Gasly. Obviously, it potentially could be Tsunoda. He just lets the car behind him past. And by the looks of it, coming to turn 13 at 14, he is doing a fast lap. Guan Yu Zhou on his first fastest lap is 3 seconds in the first sector alone, off Guan Yu Zhou. So I doubt he's fully going. He's probably still trying to warm his tyres up slightly. We have Norris, Ricciardo, Alonso, Verstappen, Latifi, Hamilton, Russell and Bottas all in the pits, whilst all the other drivers obviously out on track. Now, the Mercedes are currently 14th and 16th, 2.3 and 2.6 seconds off Sainz's fastest lap. However, they did do them laps on the hard tyres, compared to Sainz, who did his fastest lap on the soft tyres. So it's hard to compare. Now, Mercedes are probably hoping for is to close the gap that was in the in Spa. Ferrari are just hoping for the same thing, to close the gap to how fast Red Bull were. Perez is currently zero point 0.8 seconds behind Sainz. However, he's just doing long runs at the minute, Perez, as he's out on track on the soft, I think. Leclerc jumps to P4 with a 13.1, 0.282 off Sainz, with Albon P8. Albon was very impressive, obviously last race in Spa. Obviously he got a Q3, and although he did gain some positions in terms of with how many drivers took engine penalties, like Verstappen, like Leclerc, like Ocon, it still was very impressive for him to get into Q3. It's first time in Q3 for Williams. Both McLaren drivers are now on the outlaps, with Bottas also on outlap. In terms of car performance rankings, we have Norris, who is the fastest, followed by Ricciardo. Now, although it's 0.18 of Norris in terms of low speed corners, being second is very impressive. We have both Ferrari drivers, Sainz third, Leclerc fourth, with Albon in P5, which is obviously impressive from Albon considering he's in the Williams, and quite impressive from the McLaren drivers considering behind them are the two Ferrari drivers in a much superior car. We have got Sainz with the fastest time, followed by Norris and Ricciardo, followed by Leclerc, followed by Perez. All of them are on the soft tyres. Verstappen is currently P14, however, he was on the hard tyres, and since then he's been in the pit lane due to the fact that his transmission cable broke. So yeah, he won't need a new engine though, because gearbox, because basically what they do is they have a different engine for practice sessions, just so they don't wear out the engine for the race and for quali. So he won't need to take engine penalty like he has done in Spa. So yeah. Obviously, it's not the start Verstappen wanted to get off to, retiring. However, Verstappen's probably one of the only drivers who, even though it will affect Red Bull's analysis and the data they have, it probably won't affect Verstappen as a driver that hugely. So that's the only thing Verstappen probably is grateful for. as I said earlier, Norris is the fastest sector 1, Sainz fastest sector 2, and Ricciardo fastest sector 3. George Russell has just got the fastest sector 1 from Norris, who originally had it, and 25.4 for the middle sector. Very impressive sector times from George Russell to get him to position 1. 0.4 nearly off Sainz, which is very impressive from the Mercedes. However, Leclerc P5 is yet to really push for fastest lap, probably doing some sort of long runs, but near the last 5-10-ish minutes, the drivers will come out to try and do some faster lap times, and with 13 minutes and 44 seconds left. And the thing is, Russell, although he didn't get the fastest sector 2, he was probably easing his tyres so he didn't wear them out so heavily for the last sector. Because obviously the last sector is obviously quite a long straight followed by another bend, long straight, obviously the last chicane. But Sainz is just coming on his outlap now, and Leclerc is on the track right now. Still P5, still to do the fastest time possible, but we'll have to see. And in the pits, we see Jamie Chadwick, who obviously was announced as an F2 driver, I think, which is obviously very impressive for any driver. We have Norris, Stroll, Latifi all on the outlaps. We'll see what times they can do. Obviously, Norris out of all of them is probably the most useful to know in terms of it'll be interesting to see McLaren how good they are this race compared to where they were in Spa, because they were nowhere near the pace of even the Alpine in Spa, which is quite worrying for McLaren considering it's Alpine who they're in the constructors fight with for P4. And obviously in the constructors, every position is worth millions and millions of pounds. So it's very important to beat the rivals and the battle that you were in. So McLaren are hoping to gain some speed, so they are closer to the Alpine, if not faster than them. We have Norris locking up. There's lots of traffic in front of him. He just got past the Haas of Schumacher. Obviously, it could be Magnussen. I'm just going to guess at Schumacher. Lots of traffic in the way with the Red Bull in front of him of Perez. Just Perez let him out of the way? Not so far. So his lap time, yeah, he's probably going to back off slightly. He's already 1.8 behind the fastest sector. Russell is on the outlap, Perez is on the outlap, and Gasly is on his outlap. Started lap time from Hamilton, it was 0.2 behind Russell in the first sector, which is not too far off, and he's now up to position 2, which is very hopeful for the Mercedes, being P1 and P2, only 10 minutes to the end of practice 1, which although we can't get a big indication from, it maybe shows that Mercedes have developed the car, but I don't, and many of you guys don't take too much from practice sessions until it's practice 3, because practice 3 is when you get a real indication. Oh, we're just seeing Perez close off Norris onto the entry of turn 1. And we have a Hamilton on board. To be fair, he's not porpoising that much there. It didn't look like he was porpoising too much there. Obviously, all drivers experience porpoising to some degree. Obviously, the Red Bull significantly less than the Ferrari and Mercedes. But it didn't look mad porpoising. Ooh. Jeez. One of the Mercedes, I don't know who it was, just blocked Sainz up massively. Sainz on the radio, what he did is very dangerous. I agree, I think that's very dangerous. Apparently it was Hamilton, and that was dangerous, I do have to agree. I don't know what is wrong with Hamilton, but he's not getting any updates in terms of drivers. So he's blocking off lots of drivers, but he may or may not be getting told that all these drivers are behind him. Obviously, on the Dutch circuit, the layout is quite hard to get out of the way. However, it is quite wide track. It's quite easy to a certain extent. Corner analysis, turn 13, Russell is 0.04 faster than Hamilton, which is obviously a gap, however it's not significant. It's only 400s, which isn't that far off, and that could be made up. Next turn, Hamilton might make that up. However, Hamilton is 0.24 behind his teammate of Russell. That's possibly why Hamilton isn't getting in the way of drivers. It's hard to hear you on the radio. But if it's hard, you should pit and solve that problem, because it can become dangerous for himself and other drivers. Ricardo is doing long runs on the hard tyres, probably has a bit of a fuel load on. He's 5th right now, however obviously he's not going to beat his lap time, he's on the hards. We'll see how far we are is Russell's fastest lap time, which we'll find out in a second. He's 4 seconds off Russell's fastest lap time coming into sector 3. However, he's doing long runs on the hards compared to Russell's fastest time short runs on the softs. We're coming into the final 6 minutes of practice session 1. Alonso is out on his outlap as we follow Alonso through. We'll see if he gets blocked by any drivers. We'll see if he gets the fastest sector. He's on the soft tyres currently. Yeah, doing the first sector right now. Alonso is 1.7 seconds off Russell in sector 1. One thing we've got to notice though is if you see the leaderboard right now, Perez on the soft tyres is nearly a second behind Russell, also on the soft tyres, which is obviously massively different in that obviously if it was Verstappen it probably would be a lot closer, if not Verstappen in front. Obviously we do not know for certain, but Perez being 1 second nearly behind Russell is significantly worrying for Red Bull and worrying for Perez. After the Spa Grand Prix, Perez apparently saw the data compared to his teammate Verstappen, and he saw what Verstappen was doing better than him in a sense. Obviously Verstappen had the new engine, so he had more power. However, being that much faster, I don't think is just to do with the engine. Russell is now on his outlap, as well as Guan Yu Zhou, who is on his outlap. Now we have got another low speed corner ranking. Obviously before it was Norris, then Ricciardo, then Sainz, then Leclerc, then Albon. Now it's Russell, then Hamilton, then Norris, then Ricciardo, then Sainz. So it's very impressive from the Mercedes and very impressive from the McLaren, with Leclerc in P5. Just on the leaderboard though, we can see how little track time Verstappen has had. If you look at all the other drivers, the 14 laps Bob Verstappen by Guan Yu Zhou is the shortest amount of lap times done. Verstappen is only half of that. If we compare it to his teammate Perez, Perez has done 27 laps, almost 4 times as much as Verstappen. So Verstappen has lost out on a lot of track time here. So I'm assuming for practice 2, he'll be out quite a lot if they can get their transmission fixed for practice 2. And hopefully they will do. We're coming in the final 2 minutes of the session as we follow on board with George Russell on the soft tyres. However, he's not going faster. Probably just doing some fuel runs, testing tyre wear around the track. All drivers out on track bar Verstappen, who is still in the pit lane. His car being fixed, and we'll see if it's ready for practice 2. the commentators are just saying that Russell had the lap of the season in Hungary, which I completely disagree with. I think you could argue it was Perez in Saudi Arabia. As we see, Norris getting blocked off by the Aston Martin of Stroll or Vettel. Quite a big block off there by one of the Aston Martins, and it was quite heavily seen. Jeez, Norris then tries to cut in. I don't know what driver that is. Sebastian Vettel. Vettel and Hamilton have done that quite a The checkered flag has now been raised. Leclerc is on his fast lap, made it in time for the checkered flag. So we'll see what he does. However, he's heavily behind Russell 1.4 off him already in the first sector, so I doubt he's going for a long run. If we look at the laps completed, we have Norris and Ocon both on 30 and Latifi both on 31. Verstappen on the lowest with 7. Latifi's actually on 32. The timings I see, because I'm watching obviously coverage of it, is significantly behind, in terms of 40-50 seconds. So coming into the checkered flag, we have Russell first by Hamilton by Sainz. Very impressive from the Mercedes so far. However, we haven't been able to see Verstappen on track. We got Norris P4 and Ricciardo P5, which is impressive from the McLaren. So probably happy with that being P4 and P5. Realistically, though, they're going to be P7, P8, P9, P10. That's where they hope to be. But mainly, they just hope to be in front of the Alpines, probably getting points this weekend. We have Perez, we have Leclerc P6, Perez P7, which aren't obviously it's not obviously that good for second and third in the championship drivers. Leclerc is 0.67 off Russell, and Perez is 0.96 of Russell. Whether or not they just didn't do a fast lap is a different story. However, it's very impressive from Russell and very impressive from Mercedes. We then have Alonso and Ocon, both Alpines, which they won't be too disappointed with that. However, they might be worried about the fact that the McLaren, the constructors fight they're having with them, are 4th and 5th. We have Albon P10, which is very impressive, as his teammate is P20. The gap between them is a second, more than a second, which is worrying, probably for Latifi, as his contract is at risk. Schumacher 11th, Stroll 12th, Magnussen 13th, Gasly 14th, Sebastian Vettel 15th, Guan Yu Zhou 16th, Tsunoda 17th, Valtteri Bottas 18th, Max Verstappen 19th, and Latifi 20th. Now the drivers are on the pit lane. The grid, doing practice starts, which I think are very important doing practice starts. Obviously, they can do them in the pit lane if they're within that box, but doing it on the grid is just a different matter. Probably way more helpful for the drivers, and it'll be cool. That's a terrible description, I know. We have an onboard with Hamilton doing his practice start. That's a good one. Bit of wheel spin, but not heavily. And yeah, that was a good start. I will be back for practice 2 when that is there. But for now, I will see you later. I hope you enjoyed the video. And please subscribe to my channel. Like the video, please. I need to stop saying please. And yeah, be back for session practice 2. I'll leave the onboard so you can watch it for a couple more seconds, and then I will stop the video.